Sausage.
Hello, everyone. This is Attack the Backlog, the podcast where I, Marcus Nez, tries to make a dent in their backlog one game at a time. This episode is all about Death Stranding. In the future, a mysterious event known as the Death Stranding has opened a doorway between the living and the dead, leading to grotesque creatures from the afterlife roaming the fallen world marred by a desolate society. As Sam Bridges, your mission is to deliver hope to humanity by connecting the last survivors of a decimated America. Can you reunite the shattered world one step at a time? That comes from Steam. And yeah, I don't know where to begin with this. It has been quite a while since I have now finished Death Stranding, having taken years to finally get to the game. If you know me, you know how crazy that is because I am a huge Kojima fan. My favorite game of all time is Metal Gear Solid. My favorite video game series of all time is Metal Gear. I recently put together my top 100 games of all time list, and on that list are Metal Gear Solid, Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 3, Metal Gear Solid 4, Metal Gear Solid 5, Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, Metal Gear Solid The Twin Snakes, and probably not going to remain on there, but I even put Metal Gear Solid 2 Tanker Demo on there. Not to forget Death Stranding. Spoilers ahead of everything because I think this is going to be a real jumbled mess of an episode going from this to that. I have no idea how to tackle this game because from a gameplay standpoint, it is very, very simple, generally speaking. And the way I don't need to get into that, but I adore this game. And to speak to the distance between me finishing it, I've waited over a month now to actually get around to recording this episode because I don't know what to do. It's just there's so much to talk about, but at the same time, I feel unequipped to talk about the the story and all that jazz. This is just again, this is going to be a mess. But I finished the game a little over 100 hours, I think, and have since put in quite a few more hours. I'm probably around, I've taken quite a break recently, even though I want to go back when I'm playing other games. I'm just thinking about Death Stranding. I want to be in that world. I want to make deliveries. I just want to drive around and make deliveries. I don't care about anything else. It's just the most relaxing, chill game I've played in a long time. It is a comfort food game for me now and a forever hard drive game. But I am currently probably sitting at a little over 130 hours in the game. To give some context for those who have played it, I have 5-starred every single outpost, prepper, way station, etc. I've been working my way towards triple S ranking all of the deliveries, which if you don't know what that involves, you'll eventually unlock the ability to do premium deliveries for every delivery, which is the same as a normal delivery with a few specific objectives that you have to do, whether it's a time delivery to get it in under a certain time, if it's a large load delivery to deliver the entirety of it, and with a lot of these two, doing it without causing too much damage to the cargo. I think, either gotten close to or just gotten over 300 of triple S rank deliveries. So I really, really love this game and was so happy when I started to love it while playing it and only continued to love it more and more as I played it. As a humongous Kojima fan, for me, he has yet again knocked it out of the park. But I feel like I'll probably start with the story as well as I can tell it. I want to preface all this with a few things. One, obviously, spoilers for the entirety of this episode. So if you've not played Death Stranding, you want to play Death Stranding, don't watch any more of this video. Play Death Stranding, come back to this when you finish it, because I'm going to go into things as best I can. Two, on that point, I am by no means the most educated and informed when it comes to Death Stranding lore and all of that jazz. I did read every interview, every email, and I feel like I have a decent grasp on the story and characters and the world and all that. But if you want the real, true, best, 100% factual information, I am not the source for that. So just keep in mind, this is my interpretation, and it's also me being pretty removed from experiencing the story and all that as well. So just keep that in mind. But I, it's just, there's so much. To start things off, though, the thing that was evident right from the start of Death Stranding was that Kojima is on a different level, a different plane than every other video game director. And what I mean by that is, we all know, if you are a fan of his, that he is very into film, cinema, and with that, he clearly not just wants to get into that world and make movies or TV shows or what have you, but he has that eye. He has that filmic, cinematic eye that, in my thinking about it, I don't think any other director in the industry has. The way he frames shots, the camera angles he uses, the way he incorporates music, everything he does feels cinematic in a way that even your Naughty Dog games, which are incredibly high budget, have great acting, strong cutscenes, and strong direction, they still feel like video games. Incredibly highly produced, big budget video games, but video games. The start of Death Stranding feels filmic. It feels grander than just a video game, quote unquote, just a video game. And that is what Kojima brings to the table uniquely over all other creatives in the video game space. I'm sure people will dispute that or bring examples, and I would love to hear examples. I would love for people to say other creatives in the space they feel like do that. There might be indies out there that, on a much smaller scale, are doing things of that nature. But for me, Kojima is on another level on that front. And it makes sense given his love of film and wanting to get into that space. It just has a different feel. So the second I started playing Death Stranding, one, I knew I was playing a Kojima game before any other Kojima isms started happening. And two, it made the whole thing feel different from what I had been playing for so long, which was nice. Now, the story is very interesting. I don't like it's not that I don't like. I think the world building, the world itself of Death Stranding, all of that lore is more interesting than your actual story, as Sam Porter, who is the character you play, portrayed by Norman Reedus. Part of that is just because not Norman Reedus, but Sam Porter is not as interesting of a character as the rest of the cast. I think part of that is due to, I forget the name of the illness, but he has that aversion to physical touch that makes him a little bit emotionally reserved and standoffish to people. So it's a more subdued performance from Norman Reedus due to the character's inherent sensibilities. But the story starts off with Sam Porter on a delivery. He is a independent contractor at this point because he used to work specifically for the Bridges Foundation, which I believe is kind of the equivalent of the USPS. It is the official delivery service of the UCA, United Cities of America. Because the Death Stranding is this cataclysm event that may not have started with this event, but I believe the first records of anything related to the Death Stranding happened when a surgeon was trying to deliver a baby from a brain dead woman. And when he was given her C-section, when he went to cut the umbilical cord, he saw a BT, which is the shadow entity of people who pass away and their bodies aren't disposed of after 48 hours after this event takes place. Why this first one was there, what triggered it, I don't know if we know anything regarding that. But he saw the BT, it interacted with him, and when a human and a BT interact, it causes an explosion that is called a void out. And this comes with it significant damage to the surroundings that just kind of destroys everything. With BTs as well, when they appear in the world, they are accompanied by timefall. What timefall does is it's this kind of degradation, precipitation, which makes things age much faster than normal. So if you're in timefall and you're not properly covered in some kind of, whether it be under a certain structure or wearing the right gear, you will age much faster. So you'll start to wrinkle within minutes, and any kind of gear, equipment, a vehicle, for instance, will start to rust and degrade at a much faster pace. But the first instance of any kind of event with this Death Stranding stuff happened there in, I believe, New York City, specifically Manhattan. And then more incidents started popping up around the world. We don't get too much information about outside of the USA, I don't think, in interviews or emails. So a lot of the information we get is specifically tied to the US side of things. But that causes this cataclysm event that changes the way the world works. And eventually you have your various cities, and then people scatter between them in these prepper stations that are essentially bunkers. And you, as a porter, which are delivery people, deliver goods to these people in these various way stations that can't be created through chiral printers. Chiral material is this gold like material that is very strong and durable and resistant to timefall, but also can negatively affect people if they get too much exposure to it. But it allows for the creation of a lot of things through chiral printers, but not everything can be created that way. Some things still have to be delivered personally, like materials and other such items. things from the past, some kinds of magazines that people might want, or this equipment or that equipment. So you, as a porter, do this service. Again, you used to work for bridges, but you stopped working for them after your wife committed suicide because, and this is gonna, I have to talk about this. So most people are just normal people in the Death Stranding, but then there are others who have dooms, and dooms people with dooms are those that have a greater sensitivity to the Death Stranding, chiral, all this stuff to varying levels that allow them certain abilities. Depending on your level, Sam Porter is a low level one. He can sense BTs. Normal people cannot sense BTs or see them or anything. Sam Porter, he can sense them, but he can't see them. With I you eventually find out in the story, and he, I believe this is his unique ability too, that's related to his dooms side of things. His blood can damage BTs, which comes into play gameplay wise. But you have other characters like Fragile, who is the head of another porter organization. It, I don't know if it's the leading one or the leading one after Bridges, but she is able to teleport to go to beaches. What are beaches? You're probably saying. Beaches are, I look at it as the in between the real world and the afterlife. It's kind of an individual purgatory. Everyone has their own beaches, but in cases of war where people are dying together in the same traumatic way, people can share beaches. But you traverse the beach to get to the other whatever afterlife is how I look at it. She can utilize beaches to travel, to teleport through the chiral network. What's the chiral network? We'll get to that. And then you have others like Higgs, who is one of the two main antagonists. He is able to control BTs. That dude is just the dude. But where was I going with any of this? But yeah, Dooms, and so Sam's wife ended up killing herself because she could tell the baby inside of her had inherited Sam's dooms, and it started to mess with her head, and so that happened. And when that happened, he left Bridges and went on his own to work on his own. He is the adoptive son of Bridget Strand, who is the president of the United Cities of America after the president died during the Death Stranding and all the stuff that was happening. He goes to see her at the beginning of the game. She tells him that his sister, Amelie Strand, is all the way on the west coast of America. And I don't know if he tells her that or tells him that she's been captured or just to go to her. And while he's doing that, to reconnect the chiral network to unite all of the various cities and way stations and so on and so forth so that they can bring America back together again. All of that talk feels very weird in the MAGA real world we live in, where it's all about make America great again. And so often in the game, it's like bring America back. That kind of it was a little amusing thinking of it that way. But that is what you're asked to do, and that is what you're mainly doing in the game, is making these deliveries while traversing through the UCA and expanding the network. That is the crux of what you are doing gameplay wise. But story wise, you'll meet various characters. The ones who are narrative, who are important to the narrative, are all other dooms users, sufferers, and people with dooms. You can tell someone has dooms by their chiral allergy, which means that through the chiral network or when they sense BTs, or I'm not sure what causes it, people with dooms will cry. There is so much crying in this game. I don't know if I've played a game with more characters crying. But to get to the characters, so you have your character, Sam Porter, and as I mentioned, the president, Bridget Strand, who dies very early on, and you have to take her body to get disposed of. You have incinerator stations scattered across the country where you dispose of bodies so that they don't get necrosis within 48 hours and then become BTs, because that's how a thing becomes BTs, which I probably already said and I just forgot. But you have Bridget Strand, you have Amelie Strand, then you have Dead Man, who is a man. The names are great. Dead Man, who is a man made of the body parts of other dead people. This character is physically portrayed by Guillermo del Toro, but vocally portrayed by someone else. This is one of the issues I have with the game, too, in terms of it using real life people and in some cases, actors, filmmakers, so on. I don't like seeing people I know, like Guillermo del Toro or Nicholas Refn Wine, the director of Drive, or why am I forgetting his name now? Sam Sam would be the creative director for Remedy. Sam, what is his name? It's Sam. I'm just thinking Sam Porter now. Remedy Sam. Sam Lake. Such a simple name. But you use the appearance of these people, but different vocal performers. So that I, as someone who knows what Guillermo del Toro sounds like, I know what Nicholas Refn Wine sounds like, I know what Sam Lake sounds like, etc. I see their image, but what I hear is not them talking. With Guillermo del Toro, they're clearly going for someone who can do a decent Guillermo del Toro impression, but sounds who's a little bit easier to understand. And I don't know if that's the reason why he didn't do his own voice work. But getting these likenesses of people and then different voices, to me, was always disorientating. I didn't like it. That was one of the things about the game from a story standpoint that bugged me. And just in general, getting actual actors to play these characters, I don't know how much I love that. That is something where I look at these characters, oh, I know them for this thing. And it's somewhat of a immersion breaking side of things. And it's a little weird. But in some cases, I think the actress who plays Fragile, I forget her name. I think it's like Leia Sadu or something. She was in the last two Bond movies specifically that probably people will know her from. She played his love interest, the mother of his child. She is very, very good. To me, she's the standout performer. Second would be Mads Mikkelsen as Clifford Hogner. And in both of these cases, they do the physical and vocal work. I think they probably also did the motion capture, but they're very good. Mads Mikkelsen went on to win the award at the Game Awards, but I was surprised to see that Leia was not even nominated for her performance, even though she's a significant part of the story. She does such a great job with it. Instead, Norman Reedus got nominated because he's the main character, I guess. But you have, I just don't like it because you also have other people. Sam Lake's voice sounds especially off, knowing how he actually sounds. Jeff Keighley is in the game as a random prepper, and he's not even doing his own voice work, which makes me want, okay, Jeff Keighley seems to want to be best friends with Kojima. He's managed to be in the game. Was he too busy to do a few bits of voiceover for the game, or did Kojima have him do voiceover, realize this is not good, I'm gonna get someone else to do this, and then got someone else? I wanna know the story there, because I don't understand why Jeff Keighley would not be able to provide the little amount of voice work he would need to. Conan O'Brien's in the game. He actually provides his own voice work, which isn't surprising, but that was a little amusing. You have the director of Scott Pilgrim, Shaun of the Dead, I forget his name, Ed something like that. He's in it. I didn't recognize him because the way his hair is like slicked back in game, which I don't know if he's ever done. But I just want to have that tangent about I don't love the likenesses in general. And then I especially don't love it when you have the likeness and a different voice that in some cases, especially with Sam Lake, for instance, it sounds so removed from what the actual person sounds like. With Nicholas Refn Wine, the director of Drive, and Guillermo del Toro, at least it sounds close enough to what I can imagine coming out of them, but not the case with every other character. So you have Deadman, portrayed by Guillermo del Toro. You have Fragile, who's played by that Leia. You have Mama and Lockney, who are these twin sisters who I I guess I don't understand their whole deal, because when Mama and Lockney finally reunite after being apart for so long, Mama passes away. She also can cut her umbilical cord with her BT baby. And when she reunites with her sister, she fucking dies. And then her soul, her entity, her whatever gets absorbed back into Lockney and she becomes complete again. Fuck it up. But she is portrayed by, I forget the actress, but the young actress from Substance, who I think I recently realized is it Minnie Driver's daughter? Not Minnie Driver's, the actress from Michael. Doesn't matter. She's solid in it, but she plays Mama and Lockney. Guess why she's called Mama? Because she was the mother. Then you have Heartman, who is played by Nicholas Refn Wine. His Doom's ability is that he dies every 13 minutes or something like that. You could say his heart stops, and then he is able to traverse his beach for a few minutes before being resurrected, and he repeats this process over and over and over again for the remainder of his life, presumably. And he's trying to find his, I believe, wife and child who passed away, and he's trying to find them in that other on that other side. You have Higgs, who is your main antagonist, portrayed by Troy Baker. Clifford Unger, who is this other antagonist, military man, portrayed by Mads Mikkelsen. And then you have Die Hard Man, who is kind of this mysterious person who is seemingly the right-hand man of the president. And he's called Die Hard Man because it's hard for him to die. He's a survivor. But more than that, and this is where I feel like Kojima for me gets a pass for whatever reason. I think he's just earned the right to be this stupid and this on the nose and this ridiculous. The names are already so dumb. I love them. But in the case of Die Hard Man, his real name in the game is John Blake McClane. If you don't know why that's ridiculous, have you never seen Die Hard? If you've seen Die Hard and you still don't understand, Bruce Willis's character in Die Hard, the movie Die Hard, his name is John McClane. So this is just Hey, I named this character Die Hard Man because I love the Die Hard movies. Also, I'm gonna make his real name John McClane, the main character of the Die Hard movies, because I love it so much, and I just want to make sure that if you didn't understand that Die Hard Man was a reference to Die Hard, now you 100% know because the character's name is just John McClane, aka Die Hard Man. When I found out that after I already finished the game, I think in a later interview, I just I couldn't believe it. I was in utter shock. It shocked me silent. But over the course of the game, you are mainly just moving from east to west, expanding the chiral network, and interacting with these characters. There is something going on with you because you get a BB, even though characters with dooms don't typically have BBs. They're for regular humans who can't sense BTs at all, and they use them as protective when they work in the industry. And you'll have regular humans who are disposing of bodies and just to avoid BTs and all that. Through your connection with your BB, you are seeing visions of Clifford Unger, and this, you think it's the BB that you have, and him in this facility. It's very cryptic. You're not sure what's going on. I pretty much knew very early on that that was you and not your BB. And it's just the BB and your connection with the BB you have that is allowing these memories to come back to the surface. You eventually find out at the end of the game, Clifford Unger is your father, and he was trying to find you the whole time. There's weird time questions going on. Nothing like time travel, but just what exactly is going on. I think your BB is no relation to anything, though in a way the game can kind of make it seem like your BB is actually you from the past, or it can get a little confusing in that sense, as Kojima can be. And again, I'm all over the place, I'm sure. This episode, I expect people to be like, "Oh, you're just fucking all over the place. Congratulations. This is what it's like in my head. I'm just fucking a mess." But you were doing all this, and then you have your obstacles through Clifford Unger because you'll eventually get into these kind of storms where you travel back to this battlefield scenario, whether it is traveling to the past or what it is, and you will fight against Clifford Unger. But then also you have Higgs as your actual main antagonist who just fucks with you left and right. Will throw you into a few boss fights against these exceptionally large BTs, because usually BTs are these smoky, dark figures that are very clearly humanoid represented. They're just humanoid creatures. It's not even call them creatures, kind of the ghosts, remaining, lingering spirits of humans who have passed away. In some cases, especially later in the game, you will come across very large ones. But with Higgs, he will send exceptionally large BT monsters after you a few times in the game. But it is surprisingly, and I think this is where some of the criticism of the game came from, or where some people don't like the game, is that, again, you're mostly just doing these deliveries, connecting the chiral network, and so on and so forth. There's not a lot of action or other stuff you're doing. There are these, forget what they're called, these rogue porters who have been working too long and have been too exposed to chiral matter. They've lost their sense of self, kind of, and are so obsessed with delivering where they will steal other people's packages, and they create these bases where they stockpile materials and so on and so forth. And you have to look out for them. In some delivery cases, you'll have to retrieve things, stolen goods they've taken, and action comes in there. You have a few weapons at your disposal. The mazer gun, which I believe was added in the director's cut, which is this kind of taser gun. and the bola gun, which is a gun that shoots basically a thick rope with two balls on each side that, through its momentum, when you hit someone, it'll bind them and prevent them from moving, and then you just go up to them and kick them in the face, kick them in the nuts, kick them somewhere to knock them out. But the maser gun will knock someone out through just hitting them. You don't have to then go up to them and knock them out. You get action in that, and then in the boss fights. One, I played on the normal difficulty. It is very, very easy. I didn't die at all during my playthrough, sans, I think, 2 narrative specific deaths. But the way the game deals with deaths too is that, in addition to being a Doom's user or owner, haver, Sam Porter is also a repatriate. I don't know if any of the other characters are also repatriates, because I'm not sure if they ever refer to them as. But what repatriates can do is that when they die on their beach in this water area, they can return to their body and be resurrected in the real world. So repatriates essentially can go on living forever. They'll still age, obviously, but they won't die normally like normal humans. So that is the story reasoning for your ability to resurrect if you die in a game sense. But outside of the boss fights, and you interact with BTs as well, when you are doing your deliveries, you will sometimes come across storms, and in some cases, if you're doing a story-centric delivery, you will run into things that are there on purpose. But storms can happen anywhere organically. There are certain designated areas where they will always appear, and you will have to traverse those while avoiding them, or you can try and fight them off with your hermetic grenades, hermetic guns. You will eventually get guns that can be non-lethal or lethal. You probably don't want to get the lethal. I never use the lethal ones because I don't want to deal with having to take a body to an incinerator to keep it from creating a BT and a void out and all that jazz. But through your blood, which you find through the game over the course of it, that it can harm the BTs. You use that in fights to defeat BTs. And that's really it in terms of what you're doing. But again, playing on the normal difficulty, not difficult at all. I found no real challenge in it. There are only a handful of boss fights. So the crux of what you're doing are these deliveries. And I could see where the monotony of that can be frustrating depending on how you play the game. Making deliveries can be more frustrating if you don't care about building roads. And what makes it a Strand game, what the whole Strand game thing is that somewhat similar to a Souls game, you have this kind of asynchronous cooperative element, except here you were never actually interacting with other humans. Like in a Souls game, you can place various kind of in-world emotes that you can interact with and you get likes. It's a very Facebooky type of liking system that goes on. But you can't write down any information like in a Souls game. And there's no way to bring someone into your world or to go into someone else's world. However, there are structures that you can build in your world and they will show up in other players' worlds. And the road that is in a specific area and you build by adding materials to it, in doing so, you are helping out other players. And I don't know what happens when I fully rebuild a road. I don't think that does it in someone else's game. I think it will just translate to materials added in their game. So that, because it would be weird if you loaded up the game and all the roads were already built. But if you don't bother with that, making deliveries is going to be a lot more difficult because the road makes get into a lot of these various locations a lot faster, a lot easier, a lot smoother. And if you don't engage with that stuff, I could see the game being even more frustrating. But I ate all that up. So with the story and everything, to just wrap that up, Higgs is your main antagonist. He is constantly your obstacle. And it's because he is working with Bridget Strand, I believe, because you find out that Bridget Strand, Amelie Strand, is actually the younger self of Bridget. You're going after Amelie Strand this whole time. I could tell from the very fucking beginning there was something off about her. I didn't like her. I didn't want to go save her because she just felt weird. And I was like, no, she seems bad. I like this fragile character. She's nice. She's a good actor. Let me help her. I like her story, her relation with Higgs and what happened there, and her experience at the Timefall and what she did to protect this city and all. She's just such a great character. And she also, of all the likenesses are relatively good, but hers in particular is the best looking one. And I think it's because she is such a big force in the story. But with the story, you go through it all. You eventually take care of Higgs, who is also secretly Peter Engerlit or whatever his name was, who is the man you occasionally deliver pizzas to, including one very annoying one that you had to take by hand. That one took a long time. That is the one thing where I can see, oh, you know what? I was gonna go after and 5-star all these things. I don't want to do this one. But you eventually defeat him. That is the weakest part of the game for me. I think the game overall fumbles the ending. The boss fight against Higgs is the one annoying aspect of the game that I thought just didn't work. It was this very tedious, drawn out, boring fight against him. I didn't like it. And then at the ending just feels very dragged out. But overall, I enjoy the story. I really like the world building. I thought the performances were very good. Again, very, very cinematic. But to finally get to the gameplay element, I loved just making deliveries. And that's what I've been doing with the multiple dozens of hours post game, having finished the story. But I loved rebuilding the road. I probably spent 10 to 15 hours completing no story missions while I rebuilt the entirety of the road, because the world that you're in is broken up into 3 areas. You have your first opening area that is relatively small, then the second big main area that's very, very large, and then a third very small area that you just kind of go there for a specific narrative purpose, but you're not really doing much. There's not much to do there. So the majority of the game takes place in this large second area where you are rebuilding this road in addition to the reconnecting the chiral network and all that. And I spent a good 10 to 15 hours just collecting resources, going to various bases to get goods, using the materials, ceramics, metals, special alloys, resin, chemicals, all this stuff. At this point too, I've stockpiled so much of that at the main middle way station in the main area that I have maxed out the space in my private locker. That's how I've got so much ceramics and metals mainly there, because those are the main resources. You use other resources for crafting goods that you can craft. But I love the deliveries. It's fun to where you start being on your own, only able to walk, and that makes everything much more hectic. If you come across even a shallow river that's moving rapidly, you have to find a way to cross it safely, because especially if you're carrying a lot of things on your back, you can't really keep your balance for too long when navigating the water. So you'll have to use ladders, or eventually you'll be able to create full-on bridges to traverse these areas. But pretty early on, you'll start to get access to vehicles, from ATV-like vehicles to full-on trucks, and there's a roadster in the game, which is part of the DLC, that is very fast and kind of it's if you wanna make fast deliveries that are small cargo loads tied to roads, good for that. Horrible off-road vehicle. But even the truck, I primarily use the truck to make all deliveries once I unlocked it, because it's got very long battery life. It can hold a lot of cargo, and it is the best off-road. uh, The ATV might be better off-road overall, but it can't carry it anywhere near as much. But as much as I loved using the truck, and as much as it made deliveries often much easier, it still was frustrating off-road because it was clear that it doesn't have all-wheel drive. And why this truck doesn't have all-wheel drive, I don't fucking know. But that became a frustrating element. Also with the BTs, if you come into a BT infested area that is under timefall and all that, you can avoid them if you want to get around them, or you can use your weapons to destroy them. Eventually, too, you'll get an upgrade to your handcuffs, which are these. It's kind of like it's your smart device on your wrist that you connect to your bed when you sleep in a base thing for whatever reason. I don't know why you're doing that, but you get an upgrade to that where it gets some chiral coating, and you can use that to cut the umbilical cords if you can sneak up on a BT without it noticing you. But if they notice you, they'll come after you and create this kind of oil spill sludge surrounding you, and they will various BTs will start to emerge from the ground and try to pull you in to take you to the other side and create a void out and all that. When that happens with you, they'll start to grab you and then pull you down and start just moving you across the environment, eventually bringing about this large BT monster. And I don't know if the reason why those smaller BTs can't fully take you is because you have dooms or something, or because you're a repatriate. But they'll bring about these larger monsters that when you defeat them, they will leave a bunch of chiral crystals, which you use for various crafting things. But that'll also clear the storm for a short period of time. But really, what you're doing gameplay wise is just making deliveries. And again, I can understand why for some people that would be incredibly boring and monotonous, but I love that kind of repetitive act. I love that monotony, that monotonous, for fuck that word. But I like that kind of activity. I like doing the same thing over and over and over again. And I liked being in this world, and it controlled well. It looked great. Some frustrating elements about the game were, one, the tutorial pop-ups in this game are fucking insane. You can turn them off, you can have them so they only pop up once, but even after if you turn it off entirely, at the end game when you are coming across structures that are significantly damaged and you can repair them or not, they'll always bring that pop-up. And I will put in an example here so you can see it. The pop-ups last so fucking long when they show up, giving you some kind of information about this new gameplay element that you've discovered. They will linger on screen for fucking what feels like 20 seconds. Maybe it's even longer than 20 seconds. There's no button you can press to dismiss it. You just have to see it, and it takes up so much of the screen. It's so obtrusive, and there was some point where I was doing something and a thing popped up and I missed something or I got hurt by this or something happened to me because so much of the screen was being taken up by this stupid fucking pop-up. That is awful. That is probably the worst thing in the game. I hate it so much. Again, I think the truck not being all-wheel drive is frustrating. But outside of that, I don't know. I love the game so much. It was something I've been waiting to get around to for so long. And at a point, I stayed relatively spoiler free. I, after a certain point, just became afraid of the game in a way because I love Kojima so much. He is really the reason why I'm doing this, why Pixelated Sausage started in the beginning with, why I love games to this day as much as I do, because I've talked about this. Metal Gear Solid for me is the game that showed me. I think a lot of us all have our own games that did this for us, whether it be maybe Final Fantasy VII or insert your game here. For me, Metal Gear Solid was the game that showed me video games could be more than just a good time. Prior to that, I would think of some like Contra, for instance. That was a fun game I played with my brother, or Kirby's Adventure. What a fun platformer that I played with my dad. Metal Gear Solid for me was, oh my God, this has a story that's interesting and it has these incredible cinematics. It has these characters that I'm invested in and so on and so forth. It felt different. It felt larger than anything I'd experienced before. It felt, even back then, in its own ways, filmic, cinematic. It felt more than just a game. And it was that showed me that video games could be that. And it got me to love video games in a new way and look at them in a different way and realize that this is an incredible industry full of incredible experiences that we should all appreciate, and that those outside don't understand the wonder of it all. And so I was somewhat scared of Death Stranding because I knew it was a bit divisive. It was received well critically, of course, and there are plenty of fans, but I knew there were people who weren't as fond of it. And I was scared because I didn't want to feel that way. I want to love everything Kojima does because of how important he is to my video game history and how much I've loved everything he's done up until this point. Again, like I said, I when I created my top 100 games, well, I don't care about picking one or two games to represent a whole series. I will put every game from a series or a creator on a list if I love them that much. And I do. I love them so much, again, that I put the fucking Tanker demo on my list. But I absolutely adore Death Stranding. And it was hard not to immediately go and purchase Death Stranding 2 on PlayStation. I want to wait for it to come to Xbox, even though at the time of this recording, Xbox just feels like it's fucking lighting itself on fire and just dousing itself with more gasoline every single day with this story and that story. I don't know what the hell they're doing. But I think Death Stranding's a fantastic game. I am sure there are things I'm forgetting to say, but it's already been almost an hour. And like I said, my mind is just a mess from when the distance between the game and also not even remembering what I had talked about. Speaking with the interviews and the emails, I wish at least in the interview cases that they did voiceovers for those so that they were more like actual audible interviews and worked sort of like how the tapes and whatnot from BioShock worked, where you would activate a new interview and then it would start playing and you can close the menu and being in the game, working on a delivery while hearing the audio of an interview because it feels like that would make sense. And in some cases, so I would wait too long to check my emails and my interviews, and then I would have a stockpile of them, and it would be so frustrating to have to spend like 20 to 30 minutes reading through all these things, especially if I got a lot of shit from Heartman. That dude fucking talks about Egyptian shit all the fucking time, and he just goes on and on and on. And yes, it's interesting, but also when I've waited and I have like 5 of his, I'm like, oh my God, these are gonna be so long, and they're all gonna be about Egypt. Oh my God. And they're gonna have some of them, they're gonna be not about Egypt, but then they're gonna have all these big words in them that I don't wanna fucking read. Fuck you, art, man. You piece of poop. I also find it a little frustrating that the music in the game is fantastic. I love the music in it. I wish when you're in a vehicle, one of the perks of being in a vehicle as opposed to doing hand deliveries, it would be nice if the vehicles or at least the truck, one of them had access to a radio so that you can actually play the music when making deliveries. Because it is this quiet experience when you're in the world doing all that. And I wish you could change that. And then on the delivery side, it is just a tip. It is beneficial to 5-star all those relations because especially with certain preppers, when you have a really strong relationship with them, one, it helps expand the chiral network and so on and so forth so that you'll find more structures and blah, 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 blah. But with some of them, a good chunk of them, when you do a perfect delivery on a premium delivery, they will reward you with some kind of goods. In some cases, it's just materials like resin, ceramics, etc. But for some of the specific ones, like the chiral artists, they will provide you with chiral boots, which are much more resistant to timefall and will last you much longer. They're much more durable. So I have a stockpile of like 20 chiral boots now in my locker. And you could share with other players through lockers and such. I really like the Strand element of it. I've come to realize I like Strand games where you can have this kind of cooperative experience with other players without actually actively playing with them, which again is similar to the Souls things, but you've never actually bring somebody into your world. You can scream out with a button, hello, and then somebody else can interact back, oh, over here. And I don't know what the fucking point of that is. And I don't feel like I ever heard anyone scream in my game so that I could interact with them. I don't know. But yeah, that's enough. Been going on forever. I knew this was going to be a long episode because I also decided not to do the part episodes, but I didn't realize it was going to be this long. And I've already been talking for almost an hour, but I feel like I could go on for a whole lot longer. And I feel like I've probably forgotten so much, but we'll leave it at that. Death Stranding is amazing. It is one of my favorite games of all time. I think re-talking about this, I soured on the ending a little bit and I dropped it a few spaces. I think I got to bring it back up because I'm remembering how much I love this game. But anywho, that is going to do it for this year episode of Attack the Backlog, the longest one ever. Unless you count part episodes, I think Kingdom Come Deliverance would exceed this. But anywho, once again, I am Marcus Nez. Y'all can find me pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. If you enjoy this here show or any of the stuff I do and what have you, you can support me and my nonsense over at patreon.com/PXS. There you can get access to the sausage dump where I talk about this, that, and whatever, as well as a private Discord channel and some fancy Discord rules depending on your tier, of course. Or you could just support me to support me if that is your fancy. That is, again, patreon.com/PXS. In addition to the Patreon, you can find links to the site, the YouTube, the Discord, and so much more over at pxsausage.com. That is the letter P, the letter X, sausage.com. But that is it. That is all. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoy this here episode, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. But for now, adios, arrivederci. Bye, bye.
It's go time. Go, Daddy.